It has been 3 days since our last episode, so it is time to recap the news that spaceflight has brought us. To begin, we will focus on Starbase, where the Super Heavy B9 rocket underwent a pressure test. Secondly, we will remain with SpaceX as we summarize the launch of the Starlink 6-6 mission. Lastly, we will look at the launch of a quartet of Chinese satellites on the Long March 2D rocket. Activity at the Starbase in Texas has accelerated significantly in recent days. In the last episode, we discussed the transport of the 70-meter tall Super Heavy B9 rocket to the launch pad. On the day the video was released, July 23rd, SpaceX conducted another essential test. This was a cryogenic pressure test, which involves filling the rocket's tanks with cryogenic, or very cold in other words, propellants, and verifying that everything seals properly and that nothing leaks out. Testing for leaks at low temperatures is critical because at launch the tanks will be full of liquid oxygen and methane, both substances at temperatures well below freezing point of water. However, for the safety of the whole test, methane has been replaced by the safer liquefied nitrogen, which also has a very low temperature. The entire test took several hours, but one thing deserves special attention. Super Heavy B9's tanks were completely full continuously for over an hour. This is a record for all the tests SpaceX has conducted on Super Heavy rockets thus far. Furthermore, the entire test seemed to go very smoothly at first glance, without any visible problems. This would suggest that SpaceX has refined and perfected the tank filling process, which will certainly be beneficial as they prepare for another launch. You are likely wondering what else will need to be done before the launch of Super Heavy B9 and Starship 25. It is very probable that the next step will be a spin prime test of the Raptor engines. In this test, the propellants will pass through the engines but will not ignite. This would be followed by a static fire of 33 Raptor engines on a Super Heavy rocket. After that, the Super Heavy booster will be mated with the Starship, and the entire stack will be tested as well. At this point, of course, it is impossible to predict whether everything will go smoothly or whether there will be any issues that would necessitate repeating some of the tests. But it is not only the hardware that needs to be addressed before launch. Starship cannot fly without completing the investigation of the last unsuccessful launch. Therefore, SpaceX will have to wait for a permission from the Federal Aviation Administration. On July 24th at 0:50 Universal Time, another Starlink mission was launched. The Falcon 9 lifted off from the launch pad 40 in Florida on the Starlink 6-6 mission.
Full power, and liftoff of Starlink. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
The launch had been initially scheduled for a day earlier, but the weather was not favorable. SpaceX made several attempts to launch, but conditions were never suitable enough. Even on July 24th, the weather forecast was not ideal, but the launch was successful this time. Falcon 9 carried 22 second-generation mini-satellites, each weighing approximately 800 kilograms, into orbit, totaling 17.5 metric tons of cargo. Notably, one of the two cameras on the second stage had been upgraded, providing a stunning view of the sun setting over the horizon. SpaceX occasionally uses these higher-quality cameras on the second stage. The upper stage delivered the payload to a low orbit at an altitude of 294 to 303 kilometers, inclined at 43 degrees to the equator. Subsequently, the satellites transferred using their own propulsion to a target orbit at 550 kilometers, where they will join the other satellites to provide high-speed internet access to users worldwide. As always, reusability was a key feature of this mission. Falcon 9's first stage flew for the 6th time, and its landing site was the Just Read the Instructions autonomous drone ship, located 640 kilometers from the launch site. As the footage proves, the landing on the platform in the Atlantic Ocean was successful. On July 23rd, at 2:50 Universal Time, China conducted its 30th launch of 2023 from the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center's LA-9 launch pad. The Long March 2D launch vehicle, which is 41 meters tall, is capable of delivering up to 3.5 tons of cargo into low Earth orbit. However, for this mission, it was launched to a sun-synchronous orbit, reducing its payload capacity to approximately 1.25 ton. The exact capacity always depends on the specific parameters of the target orbit. Long March 2D has proven to be a highly reliable rocket, having completed 77 launches since its debut in August 1992, with only one failure. On this launch, China deployed 4 satellites into orbit, 3 of which were named Sixiang. Each of these satellites was designed to observe the Earth's surface, but through different means. The first using visible light, the second infrared radiation, and the third with synthetic aperture radar. The 4th satellite carried by the Long March 2D was Lingxi 03. It is intended to test new data transmission technologies, and its shape resembles that of SpaceX's Starlink satellites. Thank you for watching today's episode of Spaceflight News. Our next video will come out on Saturday, July 29th. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date. If you enjoyed our work, please consider giving us a thumbs up.